My girlfriend texted from Miami. I'm extending the trip. I met some promoters who are paying for everything. Don't wait up, I replied. Don't come back. Then I changed the locks and put her clothes and trash bags on the curb when she called crying that the promoters ghosted her. Title says it all, but here's how I ended up single and stress-free in 24 hours. I've been lurking here for months, reading everyone else's drama, never thinking I'd post my own. Life moves fast, though. Quick setup. I'm 27M, dating Ashley, 25F, for about 6 months. We met through mutual friends at a house party, and things progressed naturally. She's attractive, outgoing, works in sales, and at first seemed normal. The key word being seemed. I own a small auto shop I inherited from my uncle 3 years ago. I had to buy out my cousin's share and handle the transfer, but it's mine now. I'm not rich, but I make good money and the business is stable. Ashley works at a luxury car dealership, selling to wealthy clients, so she's used to being around expensive things. From the start, she talked a lot about traveling and experiencing new places. Nothing wrong with that, but her idea of travel meant 5-star hotels and first-class flights. Whenever I suggested something simple like a weekend trip to the mountains or the beach, she'd react like I'd proposed camping in a landfill. The first red flag should have been how she insisted we split everything exactly down the middle on dates. Not out of independence, but because she was already spending heavily on designer clothes and couldn't afford more. I covered plenty, but it never felt appreciated. Ashley had a group of college friends who lived for the Instagram lifestyle, constant posts from expensive restaurants, exotic locations, designer, everything. They were either trust fund kids or dating men who funded their lives. Ashley wasn't either, but she clearly wanted to fit in. About 3 weeks ago, the Miami trip came up. One of her friends was celebrating a birthday and invited the group for a long weekend. 4 days, 3 nights at a boutique hotel on South Beach. Total cost per person was around $2,000. Ashley assumed I'd be fine with her going and helping pay for it. When I pointed out that $2,000 is a significant amount of money, she accused me of being cheap. She started comparing me to her friends' boyfriends, who never complained about expenses. I told her she could go if she wanted, but it would come out of her own pocket. I wasn't funding a party weekend for her and her materialistic friends. She got upset, saying I didn't support her friendships or want her to have fun. The argument escalated when she claimed I was being controlling. I corrected her immediately. She could go anywhere she wanted as a single woman. As my girlfriend, though, her choices affected our relationship. Ashley tried every angle, saying I didn't understand how important these friendships were, that missing the trip would hurt her social standing, that boyfriends are supposed to invest in their girlfriend's happiness. I told her she had a choice: prioritize expensive trips with shallow friends, or build a relationship with someone who genuinely cares about her. She couldn't do both while being with me. For the next week, she kept going back and forth. One day, the trip didn't matter, and she'd rather save money. The next, she was on the phone with her friends planning outfits and restaurants. It was obvious where things were heading. Eventually, she claimed she'd figured out the finances, said she had freelance graphic design work that would cover the cost. I knew that was a lie. She'd never mentioned any design skills before, but I didn't push it. The Friday before the trip, she packed like she was relocating to Miami. 3 suitcases plus carry-ons filled with outfits for every possible situation. When I pointed it out, she said her friends always overpack. She left early Saturday morning. I spent the weekend working on a classic Mustang restoration. Quiet, focused, no complaints about boredom or shopping. That alone should have told me something. Saturday night, she posted stories from Miami, fancy waterfront dinner. Sunday was poolside cocktails at the hotel. Monday was shopping on Lincoln Road, carrying bags from stores I knew she couldn't afford. Monday night, I got the text that ended everything. Not a call, not a conversation, just a message like she was updating the subscription. Having amazing time. Met some promoters who were paying for everything. Extending the trip. Don't wait up. I read it 3 times to be sure. My girlfriend was telling me she was staying in Miami with random men who were funding her lifestyle. No discussion, no respect. Just a notification. The promoters part said everything. Every guy knows what that means. These weren't business contacts. They were men with money, paying to party with attractive women. I replied immediately, "Don't come back." 2 words. No argument, no negotiation, no second chances. She chose to stay with strangers instead of coming home to her boyfriend. I chose to respect myself enough to end it immediately. Ashley replied an hour later with a string of question marks and then tried calling. I sent it straight to voicemail. Whatever explanation she had, I wasn't interested. Her actions said more than any words could. That night, I gathered everything she'd left at my place. Clothes, toiletries, books, all the random things people leave behind after staying over. It took about an hour to pack it all into trash bags. Not out of spite, just efficiency. She'd chosen to stay in Miami with promoters, so she didn't need belongings at my house anymore. Tuesday morning, I had a locksmith come and change all the locks. Cost me $200, but it was worth it for peace of mind. I also had the garage codes changed in case she'd memorized them. I moved the trash bags to the garage on Wednesday morning. Figured she had 30 days to reach out about her stuff before I disposed of it legally. Standard breakup protocol. By Wednesday evening, my phone was blowing up. Ashley was calling, crying, texting, demanding to know why her things were gone and why her key no longer worked. I ignored everything and blocked her number after the 5th call. Thursday morning, I got a call from Ashley's friend Katie, who had been on the Miami trip. Apparently, Ashley was stuck at the airport because she'd extended her stay without changing her return flight. The promoters had ghosted her once they realized she wasn't interested in whatever they had planned. She needs help getting home, Katie said. The promoters ditched her, and now she can't afford to change her flight. She maxed out her credit card on the trip. I almost laughed. Sounds like she should call those promoters who were paying for everything. Come on, be reasonable. She made a mistake, but you can't just abandon her in Miami. Watch me. I hung up and blocked Katie's number too. Ashley's poor planning wasn't my problem anymore. She chose to extend her trip with strangers. Now she could figure out how to get home on her own. Friday afternoon, Ashley's sister Emma called. Apparently, Ashley had been texting the entire family, asking for money to get home. Emma wanted to know what happened and why I wasn't helping. I explained it calmly. Ashley chose to extend her trip with promoters who were covering her expenses. When that fell apart, she expected me to save her from the consequences of her own choices. She says you broke up with her over text and threw away all her belongings, Emma said. She informed me over text that she was extending her trip with strange men. I informed her over text that the relationship was over. That seemed like appropriate communication for the situation. Emma tried to persuade me to reconsider. Said Ashley was young, made a bad decision, but still loved me and wanted to fix things. Love doesn't look like choosing random men in Miami over your boyfriend at home, I told her. Saturday morning, Ashley's mother called. At that point, it was getting ridiculous. 3 different family members trying to convince me to rescue someone who had publicly disrespected our relationship. Mrs. Henderson immediately went into guilt mode. How could you leave my daughter stranded in a strange city? What kind of man abandons a woman in need? Don't you have any compassion or decency? Your daughter abandoned our relationship for promoters in Miami, I said calmly. She's an adult who made adult decisions. Now she can deal with adult consequences. She's learned her lesson and promises it will never happen again. Good for her. She can apply that lesson to her next relationship. IB locked her number 2 and decided this had gone far enough. Ashley's entire support system was trying to pressure me into fixing her mistakes. It made me realize how much they'd enabled her. Sunday evening, Ashley managed to call me from a different number, crying. The promoters had paid for her hotel through Wednesday, then cut contact. She'd spent 2 days in a cheap motel near the airport trying to figure out how to get home. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I made a huge mistake. I never should have trusted those guys or extended the trip. I just got caught up in the excitement. I listened for about 30 seconds, then cut her off. You weren't caught up in excitement, Ashley. You made a calculated decision to choose strange men over your boyfriend. The only thing you regret is that it didn't work out the way you planned. That's not true. I love you. I want to come home and fix this. There's nothing to fix. You showed me exactly who you are and where your priorities lie. I'm not interested in dating someone who makes those kinds of choices. She begged for another chance, promised she'd learned her lesson, and said she'd never do anything like this again. Claimed the promoters seemed legitimate and that she'd just been naive about their intentions. Call your parents for money or figure out another way home. Either way, don't contact me again. I hung up and turned off my phone for the rest of the night. Monday morning, I got a text from Katie saying Ashley had finally made it home after her family pooled money for a flight. She added that Ashley was planning to come by my house to return the spare key and collect her belongings. I replied that the locks had been changed and her things were in my garage, ready for pickup. Tuesday afternoon, Ashley showed up at my auto shop during business hours. She probably assumed I couldn't avoid her there. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair mess, wearing clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. "We need to talk," she said, walking into the garage. "No, we don't. You have 5 minutes, then you need to leave." Ashley started crying again, said she'd been stupid and impulsive, that the whole Miami situation meant nothing, claims she'd learned her lesson about trusting strange men and wanted to rebuild our relationship, stronger than before. "The Miami situation meant everything," I said, continuing to work on the car in front of me. "It showed me you'll abandon our relationship the moment something more exciting comes along." "I didn't abandon anything. I just extended a trip by a few days. You extended a trip to party with promoters who were paying for everything. You chose their money over our relationship. That's abandonment." She switched tactics, talking about how much she missed me, how empty her life felt without the relationship, how she'd been thinking about the good times we shared and realizing what she'd thrown away. Good times like when you complained every restaurant was too cheap, or when you insisted on splitting bills because you spent all your money on designer clothes. Those good times. Ashley got defensive, said I was being cruel, holding grudges over minor compatibility issues, that couples work through problems instead of walking away at the first sign of trouble. "This isn't the first sign of trouble, Ashley. This is the final one. You chose Miami promoters over our relationship. That's not something you work through. That's something you learn from." I walked to the front of the garage and held the door open. "Time for you to leave. You can't throw away 6 months over one mistake. Watch me." Ashley stood there for another minute, looking around the shop like she was trying to memorize it. Then she walked out without another word. I haven't heard from her since. The whole experience taught me something important about dating and standards. Some people will test your boundaries to see how much they can get away with. If you don't enforce consequences immediately, they learn they can disrespect you without repercussions. Ashley thought she could have her Miami trip and come back to a boyfriend who'd be grateful she returned at all. Instead, she came back to changed locks and trash bags in the garage. Sometimes people need to learn that choices have permanent consequences. My friends think I was harsh for ending things so quickly. They said I should have let her explain and tried to work through the trust issues. But there was nothing to work through. She showed me who she was under pressure, and it didn't align with me. 3 weeks later, I'm focused on my business and personal goals, and I've gone on a couple of dates with women who seem more mature and grounded. Funny how much easier dating is when you're not constantly worried about your girlfriend choosing other men over you. Ashley apparently moved back in with her parents after realizing she couldn't afford her apartment without help from boyfriends. Katie mentioned she's been struggling financially and emotionally after the Miami situation. Not my problem anymore. The shop is doing well. I'm focused on work and building something meaningful instead of dealing with someone else's poor decisions. Turns out I'm a lot more productive when I'm not managing relationship drama every week. For anyone dealing with something similar, the advice is simple. Set clear boundaries and enforce them immediately when they are crossed. Don't negotiate with people who disrespect your relationship. And don't rescue cessed. Omen from consequences they created themselves. Some women will test you to see if you'll tolerate being disrespected. Show them you won't, and they either adjust or leave. Either outcome works. Ashley learned that relying on random men in Miami doesn't guarantee anything when reality sets in. I learned that some people will always choose excitement over stability until life teaches them otherwise. Sometimes the best thing you can do is step aside and let life handle the lesson.